Hi, I am really glad that you're here. You know, in a world that's largely based on social media appearance and other meaningless things, it's really rare to hear people speak from an unfiltered, genuine, heartfelt place. I'm your host, Lacey Hartzell, and This is Temporary is a safe, casual, non-judgmental space for you to hear from other people's experiences with their mental health. And through this, I hope you can see that all of our voices are powerful enough to help other people feel seen and heard and validated. Because even when you feel like it, you're not alone. Hey everyone, welcome back to This is Temporary podcast. Today I'm really grateful to have two awesome guests with me. I have Anjelika Washington. She is an actor, producer, director, activist, and humanitarian, and also Blake Spears, and he is a producer and also the infamous Granny B. So guys, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having us. This is so fun, so cool, and so grateful that you asked me to join.
Heck yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Lacey. I think this is very important, and it's time that we have a platform to talk about issues like this, for real.
Right.
Yeah, I remember, Blake, you and I started talking about this several months ago when the podcast first came out, and I was kind of prodding you, going, hey, you want to do an episode? You want to do an episode? And you mentioned Anjelika pretty early on. You're like, I'll do one with her. And I was like, great. So I'm just glad that you guys are both here. So this is obviously a mental health podcast, but, as I mentioned before we started recording, it's just us talking about our stories, especially in a year like this year. We can't help but acknowledge the emotional and mental health journey we've all been on. And the challenges presented. So I'm curious to hear, start wherever you guys want, but it's your episode. I want to hear about, your stories with mental health and leading up to this year.
Can we start
I'll
with
go
Donald
after.
Trump's mental health?
Wait, what'd you say?
Nothing. I said, can we start with Donald Trump's mental health? But then
everyone has mental health to work on. That is a fact. But, but yeah.
After you, Blake.
What did you say,
Blake,
Anjelika?
I said after you.
Oh. Well, I have experienced, like many people, during this COVID-19 time, dealing with depression and anxiety. I already had anxiety. I just didn't put a name on it. So I've been seeing a therapist ever since August, and it's been good.
Awesome.
Let me tell you.
That's awesome. I didn't know you had started. That makes me really excited for you. So you feel like it's a good fit?
Yes.
Good.
And I sit there and tell all my business.
Yeah.
Yes.
They help me through. At first I was like, oh, damn, let me not tell all my business, because, you grow up, don't tell your family business now. It's very hush-hush.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling my family business, and I'm like, well, damn, that wasn't right, or this made me this way, or this got me being like this. And I'm like, oh shit, this therapy shit is working. I think everybody needs it.
Yeah.
Right.
I highly recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. I love that you you said and acknowledge the whole understanding. I think that a lot of us grew up under a don't tell your family's business. This is our shit to deal with, because I know for me, that mentality kept me completely naive and not understanding the codependent dysfunction that I was living with my whole life,
Yeah.
I love my family so much, but it wasn't until the past several years of my adulthood that I realized, oh shit, I came from a codependent family, and that has caused me to struggle in many ways with all the other relationships I encounter. So, a lot of people are interested, Blake. A lot of our listeners message me on This is Temporary's Instagram, and they ask about starting therapy, and what's that process like? So what was your intro like, and how did you go about finding it, if you don't mind sharing however you feel comfortable?
So what I did, I have Kaiser Healthcare, Kaiser Permanente.
Nice.
And so I just did a search on Kaiser, and I was looking for specific kind of, what are they, therapists.
Yeah.
And then, so I found the type. I set up a intro meeting, and, I got comfortable really quick.
Cool.
I know for some people it may take longer to get comfortable, but I got comfortable because I picked this lady in a sense, and she kind of understood me.
Yeah.
And at the start, they want to know a couple of bullet points of your life and why you feel like you need to be in therapy and things like that. And, you work on those issues that you start with, and it'll grow into something else. And I mean, it'll even be like the things that you think are so small. Like, why do I do this when it comes to adults? Or why, what I'm saying? Like, these small issues that you never think of, you're just like, oh, this is how I am.
Yeah.
But it gets kind of explained in a way to you by somebody just being there. It's different than having a friend where you're just telling your friend what you're going through, and your friend's like, damn, I wish I could be there with you. I feel you, but I'm not totally feeling you. You know what I'm saying? Like, therapists are licensed to kind of be sitting there talking to you and allowing you to spill whatever you want to spill and give their take on it.
Right.
So I think that is really, really key.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing. I love that. And I hope too that, through our openness of us telling our stories and our experiences and the way we have found ways to cope, that we're helping provide our audience who feel and experience just like us, ways that may work for them, or at least they could try it, So I love that. Okay, cool. So that was recent.
That was real recent. And let me tell you, I got a text from my grandfather because I told him I was going to therapy. He was like, why are you going to therapy? Like, it's one of those things in the Black community.
Pray about it.
Like, it's one of those things in the Black community. Like, we don't need help. We don't need somebody to psychoanalyze us and tell us what we doing wrong and the reason behind it. And that's some white people shit, is what they call it. White people shit. And so I want Black folks to really understand that therapy, it sees no color.
Yeah.
It's not race objective and shit. Like, this is some real shit to help you better as a person, as a human being. Help you understand yourself, help you understand other people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And once we can cross that line and understand other people, I think it would just be more love in the world.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
I think to add to that, Blake, as you said, like, therapy knows no color. And I think that that's simply because mental health knows no color. Mental health is a human issue. And when we get to a place where we realize that mental health is not cultural. There are many, many things that are cultural, right? Where as like the Black community will say like, oh, that is white people shit or whatever. But mental health is not one of those things. Mental health is something that affects just human beings, period. There's no race, there's no sexuality, there's no sexual orientation, there's no gender. It's just a human thing that we all have our own version of that, right? Like Lacey was saying earlier, like, even when it comes to Donald Trump, like, everyone has their own level of mental health, right? And no one is immune to it. Even if we're continuously working on ourselves. And for me personally, I'm always working on like my self-growth and my own personal development, things like that. And my mental health is only, being explored and is growing as I'm growing, and it's changing as I'm changing. And there's levels to it, of course. There's some days where I feel amazing and I feel incredible, and I feel super positive and I feel, you know, happy and excited to get out of bed and explore the day. And then there's other days where I'm not getting out of bed. You know what I mean? Like I'm mentally just drained and I don't want to get out of bed. And I think for me personally, I've experienced way more of those days than I ever have in the last few months. And I think that's just because of where the world is. You know, I'm not easily depressed. I'm not easily very anxious. I think when this pandemic hit for me, I was really positive, honestly, about 5 months through. Like honestly, I know a lot of people, they kind of hit their wall like 30 days in or 60 days in. And I didn't hit my wall until maybe about 30 days ago, you know, until we we're already like 5-6 months in. And then I was like, all right, so I gave this 6 months of positivity, and now I'm at a place where I'm not seeing so much light anymore. And, you know, this Black Lives Matter movement, obviously I'm a Black woman, so it's been very personal to me and has affected me a lot more than normal. And luckily I, like Blake, have been able to get a therapist recently. Mine, however, I started around like June.
Okay.
At the end of May, around June. And I actually found her through an app ad that I saw on Instagram, which I'm super excited for. I was called BetterHelp. I was using that. And then my therapist actually left the BetterHelp platform to do her own private, like why can't I think of it? It's basically like just private.
Oh, private practice?
Yes, private practice. Thank you. I'm like, there's a show called what I'm looking for. Her own private practice. And I went with her there because I think once you find a good fit, it's really special. So I've had therapists in the past where I really knew it wasn't a great fit, but I didn't really know how to say, like, I don't like you, or, you know, like, I don't think this is a great fit. I don't want to be talking to you as much, but I know I need to talk to someone. So I guess I'll just like suck it up and share all my shit with you, you know? And then I was able to find one through BetterHelp, which you can like customize, like if you prefer the race, if you prefer the gender, if you prefer the spiritual or religious journey of that therapist. That, which was really helpful for me. And I found someone who has the same belief system as me. She's also a Black woman. She very much so understands and gets me and sees, you know, what I'm going through. And I don't feel like I have to hold anything back from her. And I don't feel judged. I feel seen. And I feel heard. And she lets me know, like, okay, so let's think of that a little differently, right? Like, that's a negative thought. How can we make this a positive thought? And then she never tells me I'm necessarily wrong, right? But she definitely challenges me in ways that I need. And I think the more, Blake, there's people like you and I, especially for the Black community, we start speaking out about us having therapy and utilizing resources and tools for ourselves to like grow and be better. And we share that with others. It helps take the stigma away. It helps like take that away so we don't have to feel shameful. Like, I don't want my nieces and nephews to ever feel shameful to have a therapist, to like seek mental health, or to even like feel like ashamed to admit that I think I need to see someone. You know what I mean? So yeah, sorry, that was a lot, but
no, I love that. Thank you so much for all that, because you're right. You two are powerfully helping to destigmatize mental health, and not only in general, but as you mentioned specifically for the Black community. That was something Blake brought to me months ago, and I had a couple other friends bring this up to me. And even I remember on Jenna's episode, we were talking about how mental health has been culturally overlooked, or in minority communities overlooked, because people treated it like it was a cultural thing, when it's, like you said, it's not. And there were, you know, older generations of understandings around mental health, around therapy, around receiving diagnoses to help with healing, and to understand that. I think there was just a lot of fear, and it comes different from every angle. But something really powerful you said, Anjelika, was that you found a therapist who helps you to feel understood and safe and heard, seen, supported. And it is beautiful what can happen to any human when they feel those things. You know, the hope and healing that is available to all of us, and that in our, you know, journey to destigmatizing mental health by doing what we're doing right now, just talking openly about it, showing other people it's available to you too, you know.
Right.
And that's something that I understand the fear that is involved, especially if, you know, maybe you come from a family that has conditioned you to think one way, you know, that, oh, only people who are weak or crazy, here are just some stigma words for us, you know. But you know, those are the kind of words you hear when people are like, oh, they need help, you know, what do you need help for? I'm not one of those people that needs help. And it's like, oh my God, every human needs help.
Yep.
You know.
Right. We
um
didn't have to walk on our own, you know.
yeah, oh my gosh, I think this year that has presented many ways of dividing people has also given us the discomfort to grow and to understand how we need to unite.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And I mean that concerning everything, concerning our the social justice movement of understanding and being able to look at another person and put yourself in their shoes and feel with them, not just for them. And to, yeah, right, that empathy versus sympathy is what I'm always challenging myself to go, I'm an empathetic person, but I'm guilty of feeling for someone versus with someone.
Yep.
You know, because I think with someone incites the action to what are you going to do to help change, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I think this connection that we're doing right now of sharing our stories, sharing how we feel. I think, Anjelika, I saw you for the first time actually on my friend Sam Logan's Instagram TV, like live or something. It was an episode she put up called Black Lives Still Matter.
Oh my gosh, yes, Samantha Logan.
Yeah, that was so powerful. I thought that was, I was just inspired by y'all's bravery and courage to take the time to sit and be so candid, and just speak from your hearts. And I just think that was such a powerful way of using your light in the middle of a dark time to help others see better, you know. And when people can see better, then they can't really use the I didn't know better excuse.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's
and I think
go
when
ahead.
we get to a place too where we all start to just take accountability for ourselves, and then once we take accountability, then we can realize our responsibility. And when you have any sort of platform, period, everyone has a platform, and at the end of the day, right? But you have a larger platform, when you're gifted with that, you start to learn that there's a responsibility that you have to utilize that, because everyone's using it regardless, right? So there's Black Lives Matter going on, and you see that you have Black friends or people in your life who are hurting, actually hurting, just because you can't feel that and you can't understand it. And then you're like, well, I'm just going to go to the beach and I'm just going to continue to post beach selfies. I'm going to continue to whatever. That is you also sharing a message, right? Not saying like, I'm standing with you. And I think it was a learning lesson for a lot of people. I can speak for the white friends I've had conversations with, of them not, of course, realizing their privilege that they already knew, but realizing that no matter what, you trying to ignore it and being silent is violent as well. It's literally you just sitting by along with oppression, right? Because you're not recognizing it. Unfortunate, but I think once they can take accountability for how they're reacting to things, then they can see their responsibility in that as well.
Absolutely. And that was such a profound thing you just said, because it's not only that example you just used, but it's everything. You know, it's like I've had to look at, you know, I'm a bipolar person, and I have used my bipolar disorder as an excuse for years. And I'm not shaming myself. I've worked on having a lot of grace with myself in this season, but the acceptance an acknowledgement of what I have participated in is important to my healing and to my change, my growth. Yeah, so it's that realization of, hey, I am far more responsible for things than I have acknowledged. And sure, there's parts of my mental health that I can't control. Like I can't always control my episodes and when I go in and out of a depressive episode or a hypomanic episode, and I can't always control the emotions that I'm feeling. But what I can control is my response to them, like in response to what's in front of me and what I have to work with, what will I do? And am I going to do something, that's going to make me proud of who I am, that's going to shape me into the person I want to be? Or am I going to continue to just revert to what was comfortable, revert to what was easy and what was known, even though I was not enjoying it, it was still all I knew to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, that's completely relevant to what we're seeing a lot of people do. I'm just going to revert to what's comfortable,
Yes.
I'm just going to act like I didn't, like I was saying that when you kind of illuminated the path for someone, some people are like, you can't unsee what you've already seen,
Yes.
But people can act like they did, not see it.
And they sure do act like it's over.
Yeah.
They sure do.
Well, yeah, like it was just a 1 month thing. And it's like this has been going on since our country began. And it's still going to continue to go on until we see rightful justice and an equality and a safety for every person in this country.
Exactly.
But I think that's where people revert to that dividedness. Of like, that, I'm not affected by, and then privilege divides, that, oh, I'm not affected. I'm like, well, you can afford to do that because you're right. You're not affected. But in the truth, if you want to, acknowledge the connectiveness that exists within all humanity, then it's like, we all are affected by one another. And when I see someone else's pain, I feel that pain and I can help. You know what I mean? Like, it may not be in this grand, like, I'm some great politician who can promise people a bunch of stuff kind of way, but each human can make a difference.
Right.
And so how do we get to a place of kind of building that, encouragement within one another to know that we can make a difference? I mean, it starts. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it really starts with the people who influence the majority of the population, which are young Hollywood, at least for the youth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Getting educated and knowing what the props are, not just knowing who you're voting for president, but you got to know what the props are, knowing who you're electing into office aside from the president. So like the senators or House of Reps and all, I mean, just different folks. We need to be kind of knowing everything about these different folks.
Right. Well, that's one of the responsibilities I think Anjelika was talking about too, is like, think about all the areas where you hold responsibility. And that's a huge one you hit on, Blake. Yep. It's like, am I going to sit here and complain about the way things are, or am I going to allow myself, because I am always one for saying, hey, validate your feelings, feel what you need to feel and sit in it if you need to sit in it. But what I'm really challenging myself to do is to no longer complain when I realize that I have more responsibility and that I had, overlooked the areas that I had more control than I thought,
It's take action. Just take action. And I said this to Anjelika the other day, faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
You can't have faith that the world is going to change without putting in work.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's what it takes.
Yeah.
And for all the Christian folk listening, I'm a Christian myself, but for all the Christian folk listening that ain't doing nothing, that's what it is. It's faith without works is dead. You're not trying. Are you trying to make it a better place? Are you trying to figure out how, in what way you can undo what's going on with the education system, you know, what's going on with big pharma, like all these different elements. It's not just the president.
Yeah.
Right? There's all these other things that we need to get associated with, and knowing what's going on in all these different places, because the corporations and the politicians got all the power, and they are, you know, not caring about our lives.
Right.
You know, we are cash flow to them.
Yeah.
So it's time to fight back and be like, hey, we're not just green. If you see us as green, we can take that green away.
Right.
Right.
You know, if you see us as only green and don't give a damn about our humanity,
Yeah.
Right.
then we cannot be with you.
Right.
Right.
Because like everybody says, you learn in 5th grade, I mean in kindergarten or something, there's only one race, the human race.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's thinking about just everything that every human should have. I don't see why there should be debate or discussion.
I agree.
Black lives matter. Why do they not?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody should have access to food. Duh.
Right.
Everybody should have clean water. You're damn right. Like what? There's some things that you just be like, damn.
Yeah.
How could you say you are a Christian, or how could you say you are this, or how could you say you are that? Everybody has the right for marriage. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to separate church and state.
Yeah.
Right. It's all such common sense too.
Right.
Like, when you start really thinking about it, like, oh, so you don't think people should have healthcare? Oh, okay. You don't think people should have food and clean water and clean air, and you don't think that we should like be able to have a funding budget so we can manage the forest fires so people's houses aren't burning down? Like, it's such common sense when you really break it down.
Mm-hmm.
And politics included and also aside, I mean, not to go back, but like you were saying, it's like, who do we have, who holds responsibility? And like Blake said, yes, young Hollywood definitely does for the youth of this country and of the world, but, you know, politicians and quote unquote celebrities, because the unfortunate truth is these are the people who have control over what the rest of the world sees.
Right.
So regardless if you think, you know, because I'm a celebrity, but I didn't choose to be a role model, I didn't choose to, you know, be that person that has that voice and has that platform. Okay, but a lot of people didn't choose the paths for their life, right? Like, none of us really do. So if you believe in God, which I mean, as I do, I know you do, Blake, but like, if God gave you this platform, whether you believe it or not, the universe gave you this platform.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's your higher self, whatever you believe, if you were given this platform, it is now your responsibility of how you use it. And how you use it is a choice. It is a choice whether you use it for the betterment of other people and the betterment of society because you know right from wrong. And it is a choice if you do not do that, right? Every action that we have has a reaction. So you have a choice of how you use that. And I think that when all of these people, whether it be politicians or not, like, we all know, right? Whether I think at this point, if you're a Trump supporter or not, we all know that there's some mental health going on up there that needs to be peaked and needs to be attended to. And I mean, I'm not a Trump supporter in any possible shape or form, but that doesn't mean I wish any ill intent, because he really needs it's help, right? It's like you and you're like, he needs help, you guys. Like, this is actually deeper. And I hate to say deeper than hate because it's rooted in hate, and that's really awful. But it's deeper than hate because his hate stems from like a disorder. It stems from like a mental illness, a disability or of some sort that like needs to be attended to. And I think when we start to address that, you know, then it's also like, well, yeah, of course he's hateful and says these awful things. Well, yeah, I can see through that because I can see that this is a deeper rooted issue. Right. And it's not in any way, I'm not saying that it's acceptable, because it's not. I'm not saying that it's okay, because it's not. Because again, that's where he has to take accountability and responsibility, right? And the people around him, his counsel, the people who are leading him and who are his right hand people, have got to at one point take responsibility and accountability for the role they're playing in it, that they're allowing it, right? And that they're not seeking help for him, that they're just allowing this to happen and allowing his actions to affect the rest of the world, literally the world. Not like his actions are affecting 5 people, but 5 million, you know? So.
Right. Well, you bring about an interesting, I'm glad we're diving in this direction. That's why I always love conversations. I'm like, it's always fun to see where we go, because it's we're all digging, you know, we all want to understand, we all want to shed light and figure shit out, you know, and
Right.
I've often seen, especially on the level of fame kind of scale, where mental health has been exploited. And I think a good example of that is Robin Williams, and how his bipolar was exploited, because they got good shows and reactions out of him, and the people around him at the time when he was younger, when he was doing like stand-up comedy and movies. Like, I don't think they really understood mental health really, to the extremity, like that he needed help. And obviously he was one of those beautiful souls that we lost early. And I just, I don't know, I think about him a lot, and not just because, you know, he and I share the same disorder, but it's that exploitation of other people around you, seeing how they can benefit from your mental health. Because mental health isn't always an issue. Sometimes it's a beautiful challenge, and great things come from it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in Trump's case, I think what we're seeing is, at least from just my perspective, at least an extreme like narcissistic personality disorder. I do feel that it's exploited. You know, I mean, that's how he had his big reality TV show, and that's what, you know, that was his extreme character type that they loved to watch, because it was so interesting and fascinating and extreme. And as a president, I don't believe that a president should ever be a narcissist. I believe that a president needs to have deep empathy. And I believe that many different types of personalities can you know, fill the shoes of that office. But in his case, it's just been really discouraging and divisive to our country to see someone leading our country in a way that is so lacking in empathy, so it seems. You know, and it's tough, because I agree with you guys that it's a mental health thing that I see. And I think oftentimes when I look at situations in life, I'm like, there's more here than meets the eye. But what is on the other side of that is, how did we as a society get to a place where we value so many other things on the outside, the material, above the line stuff, where we completely convinced ourselves we didn't need to acknowledge the below the line stuff, the internal, the soul stuff, you know? And I think that's where, when I look at the incredibly divided, like, bipartisanship of our country, I'm like, as an actor, you know, and you'll get this, Anjelika, I think we're called to always be able to step into people's shoes and to go, how do I not judge this? You know, how do I accept, like, how did they get here? You know?
Absolutely.
But it's tough, because there's so much of a disconnect from, and I don't just mean from human to human, I mean from human to self, you know?
Yes. I completely agree. And I think that being an actor is such a privilege, but also a really great tool that we get to utilize in situations, just because I know, like, pretty much any time I can look at things from someone else's perspective, like, all the time. In, like, any situation, I can be like, well, how would I feel if that was me? If all of these things happened to me, whether I have all the rest of the clues, all the answers, regardless, how would you feel, period, if that was me, right?
Right.
And with that, like you said, it definitely helps, you know, when it comes to when it comes to sympathy and empathy, because I can view both sides. But I think, unfortunately, when it comes to politics, we can view both sides, and then we say like, okay, well, clearly this side is wrong, right?
Yeah.
This side not only just makes sense, you're like, but there's like actual facts on this side, there's data,
Yeah.
like, but he did say it, I watched it, I don't know, it wasn't fake, I saw it with my own eyes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So things like that. But again, I think when it comes down to that, I'm just going to be really honest. I feel like there's even a level where, I've been saying like, okay, at this point, if you can still support Trump, like it's just a choice. At this point, you've chosen to neglect the facts of everything else. You've chosen to neglect, like, at this point, I do feel like, you're probably a racist too. But I do think that belief, that loyalty that his supporters have for him, there's also some mental health in there too, right? Because at what point in your life do you see someone continually doing things that are shameful or that are hurtful, right, to other people, other human beings that are hurtful, and you stand by and say, well, it's fine, and make justifications for every little thing, right? Because then at that point I'm like, maybe you should talk to someone as well, because if you can justify every horrible thing someone does, there might be something internally with you, right? That like we have to take a look at. There's like some mental health there as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, for anytime people become that desensitized to humanity, it is unnerving, to say the least. So I agree. I think that unfortunately, I mean, I am from the South. So it's funny. I've always had kind of the soul of like a hippie spirit, but I grew up in Alabama, and I never felt like I really belonged there. And I often felt like misunderstood, and I was very much spoon fed a lot of, the general assembly line of beliefs that I felt like existed there. And I'm not saying that was just my experience. But it was hard because what I witnessed, not from everyone, but from a lot of people growing up, was that everyone kind of just wanted to think the same things, do the same things. They didn't want to be disturbed. They didn't want to grow. They didn't want to be challenged. You were shut down if you challenged the status quo. And I couldn't grow there. It was like, and again, it's not everywhere. It was just my experience, because I know there are going to be people who say like, I'm growing in the South and you keep growing.
Yes, but, you do that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I understand. It's funny, I think it's intentional for me and my purpose here on this earth, and my journey, it was intentional that I grew up where I grew up, so that I could understand from other people's perspectives. Because I think had I not grown up there, I would have looked at, the Southern Bible Belt and been like, what was happening over here?
Right.
But it's important that I do. And so I guess at this point, I've learned to be, a better listener, but I've also learned to be a better acceptor of the things that I can't change.
Yeah.
And a more powerful human individual to go, what can I change? And like you were saying, Anjelika, like what we say matters. The messages we send on our social media platforms, no matter how big or small, that's sending a signal to the people who are taking in and absorbing your materials.
Right.
And so it's, I think awareness of ourselves, of our intentions, and just knowing ourselves better helps us to navigate more, moving through day to day, I don't know. I kind of go back to the whole like destigmatization of mental health in general. And there were times where I would get so frustrated because I would see things on Instagram where it was like maybe a big funny Instagram account would post something that was a little stigma influenced. And I felt powerless. I felt like, well, what can I say to that? they're just gonna like my comment will get lost, or I'll look like a hater but I'll be like, I'm trying to inform with love, and how that was inappropriate, their use of, bipolar or OCD or whatever they were doing. But I think, moving forward, how do we become game changers? What are some key things that stick out to you guys, and that we can also help our audience? What comes to mind?
You asked what are some key things that I feel.
Yeah. Sorry, it was a little all over the place, but
No, it was great. I was trying to narrow my answer. So I was like,
sure. Well, I just think in regards to everything that we do, like, you're a humanitarian and an activist, and I hear in both of y'all's voices the power of being mental health advocates as well, or else, you wouldn't be on this episode. And it's like, what can we do each day? I'm talking about us individually, and can we recommend to our audience, like, no matter what area of, what area we're called to, shed some light to, how can we do that? And I mean, we could start with social media, because that is part of it. And what does that look like? And what is rebelling against? Because I think of rebelling a lot. Like, my mental health advocacy and how I'm so loud with, hey, this is what I'm dealing with now. And I'll try to intentionally post things even on my story that are like, whereas people would assume you would post the fun stuff, like, hi, I just got a pumpkin spice latte. It's like, no,
right.
I want to post, hey, I just got blood work done, almost passed out, but I survived this time. That was an accomplishment for my anxiety,
Yeah. And that's also completely valid, right? That is an accomplishment.
Yeah.
I think I'll start. I think for me, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to just like little daily things, I think for me, it starts simply by my own self-awareness.
Yeah.
Right. I think and it's not in a negative way. I never shame myself into self-awareness. Like, I'm never like, oh, I wasn't this and I didn't do that, or gosh, I'm so stupid because I didn't think of this, or I'm so dumb because I didn't blah blah blah, right? That negative self-talk, which we all have that,
right?
But becoming self-aware, where when I hear that, I say, no, that's not me.
Yeah,
that's not right. That's not me. And ignoring that and being like, no, I do a lot of affirmations to myself. Yes. And I'm like, no, I'm a positive, strong, intelligent Black woman. That's my identity. And I know that I'm all of those things. And I'm also talented, and I'm going to hold value for myself, because there is enough room for me here.
Yeah.
There is enough room for me here.
Yeah.
So, just reminding myself of that. And then when I can remind myself of that, there's a little plan to it. So it's like, that's the first step. Then the second step is like, okay, so how can I be self-aware of my own actions and how I affect other people? I think one of my biggest pet peeves, especially now, like, that I'm like starting to date and things like that in this weird time, consideration of other people is like very important to me. And there's a lot of people who I've realized they don't even realize how their actions affect other people, and they don't even stop to think about it. They just live. And there's nothing wrong with living your life. We should all live our life, but there's a way in which I think we can live our life and also look and say, and be just have self-reflection and say, how did what I say affect that person? How did they react to that? And how could I have said that in a way that was more kind, but still keeping my point across, Right. I think it's just being considerate of other people and their feelings, because everyone is going through a battle you don't know. And I think the more I remind myself of that, right? Like, Lacey, if I would have seen you, like, if I would have just have met you at a party here in LA or whatever, I would have never known that you were experiencing, your own mental health journey, right? I wouldn't have known that, because you don't know by just looking at someone.
Right.
You don't know the things people have been through and things they've experienced by just looking at someone.
Right.
I think if anyone is a great example, I look at the Kardashians. I'm like, they're beautiful people, but we only know because they have a show, right? Because they have a show going on, so we know everything that is going on behind their lives. But if you could remove this amazing Kardashian era that they have somehow continued to really dominate. But anyway, if we could remove ourselves from that and say, if I just saw Kourtney Kardashian walking down the street with her kids, I would not know the shit she's experienced. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You wouldn't know. And so I think we have to just be really kind to ourselves, but also to others. That's actually what I was getting to. My goal in life is to always just be as kind as I can.
Yeah.
And I think when you have like a flat kind of like perspective of like, so I'm going to be kind today, and I just choose to be kind every day. And it's a conscious choice. And I think kindness is such a special, it's a lot of things. I was going to say it's a characteristic, it's an attribute, it's an action, it's an everything. But kindness is so special because within kindness comes everything. When you choose kindness, you're automatically choosing empathy. You're automatically choosing understanding. You're automatically choosing thoughtfulness. You're automatically choosing to listen. You're automatically choosing to see, when you choose kindness. I just really love kindness. I think it's everything. When I think of Jesus, I think of kindness. I think of God. I think of kindness. I think of the beauty of the world. I think of kindness, right? I think of oxygen. I think kindness, like gravity, like all of these things that give to us and don't receive anything back. It's just kind. And so, I think the more we all choose that, the better. But it all starts with ourselves and being kind to ourselves. First.
I love that. I love that is your word. Because I do think that, each of us, we have the potential for such bright light spirits that can, drive some crazy powerful purposes here. And I just think it's cool talking to other people. Like some people I think are joy, some people I think are peace, and to hear kindness, that's just really cool to me. Because of course, I would hope most everyone is like focusing on being kind, but there's a difference when you're like, no, that's my word. Like my word for myself recently, at least this year, has been grace, because I feel like in order to heal from the past, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning with like, the family stuff and what we don't talk about and what we realize affected us much more than we thought. I have a lot of healing that I'm going through, and a lot of trauma and stuff that I used to remain so reactive towards, just in my daily life, because I was reliving my past. And that was my participation that I'm aware of now and that I take responsibility for. But if I can have more grace with myself and more grace with others, it's very similar to the kindness. It's my shade of it. It's just like that's that gentleness that I feel like is involved in grace. Kindness, of course, is a part of it, but forgiveness is a part of grace. And that's something I've struggled with a lot in my life. But when I'm able to forgive myself for the mistakes I've made, for the times that I have fallen short, for the times that I've participated in a version of me that I don't want to be, and for forgiveness for the people who have wronged me and who have hurt me and prolonged my suffering. It's like that forgiveness and that grace, it allows me to step into the hope and the healing that's available to all of us. Which I think it sounded like your kindness was your version of that, which I just thought was cool. Absolutely.
Yes. I relate 100%. Yes. And grace is so beautiful. And you put that very beautifully.
Thanks. It's been my word lately. What about you, Blake? What do you feel like? Do you have any mantras or any specific?
I can't top that. But just remembering that pain is universal and that everybody experiences pain.
Yeah.
And it may not be somebody's day, Joy and pain are what we all go through. Nobody can live without joy or pain.
Right.
So just being mindful of other people and trying to understand folks goes back to that kindness that Anjelika was saying so beautifully. It's just a way of living. You got to teach yourself to live with your heart. You know what I'm saying? So, and don't get so deep into your mind and your head and get so frustrated. Because at the end of the day, for what? What is it? Like, the anger and being mad, it sometimes controls folks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And as a business, the business of entertainment, with the depictions of mental health and things like that, I think is very necessary to bring in some folks who can actually take a look at the work before it's even produced and ensure that it is accurate. It's reflective, it's authentic.
Thanks for saying that, honestly.
It has to be analyzed, and it has to be discussed, and it has to be put in these messages. And I'm not saying mental health only has to be in dramas, because that's what it's been for so very long. It's mental health and dramas, or if they're in comedies, it's the joke of the comedy, right? In no comedies do you see, oh, this character has mental health or something, but the mental health is not the butt of the joke.
Right.
You know, so it's going to be our responsibility as producers, as creators, to kind of, you know, oversee some of these developments when it comes to projects like that. Because I had a writer the other day who wasn't bipolar, sent me a script about a girl who was bipolar. And he was like, I think this is right. I'm like, no, hell no. We're not about to put this out. You're not doing this project with me. And if you want to do this project with anybody, these are the things I suggest.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, fight that. Like, I don't give a damn who's attached to the project. You have to show and be reflective and be responsible when you talk about other people's lives, especially when you don't live it.
Right. Well, I think the level of production has been watered down because people are able to be like to just make stuff left and right now. And there's so many shows coming out all the time, and I'm not saying all of it. There's still some incredible shows, thankfully, out there, and that give us hope, you know.
Like Stargirl, amazing.
Hell yeah. So I am so glad you said that, Blake, because I multiple times, and this is just speaking on bipolar. This isn't even talking about any other diagnoses or any other, you know, issues or, you know, that I've seen in multiple mainstream TV series, people throw in a bipolar character or a bipolar story, and they call it for what it is. They know that the word bipolar has a shock factor. They're like, oh, bipolar. And it's been presented as the person with the problem. The person who is the problem, the family's problem. And I can't tell you how much I have struggled personally feeling like I am the problem in my life and in my family's life. And I know my dad felt the same way. He's bipolar as well. And we're both going through a lot of therapy and healing and doing our own work. That is our responsibility. But I think the way we beat this is, and add on to it is, like you were saying, Blake, is to be specific, is to bring in storytellers who know what they're talking about, or collaborate with people who have the specifics to back up with research and experience, lived experience with whatever story you're telling. You know, I mean, I just think that even if, you know, if I had a writer come to me and they wanted to write and just have my insight and check alongside it, I would admire them for that. I still would be like, what brings you to want to write a bipolar character? What's the point? I would ask that. But I also would be like, if they truly had the heart to want to destigmatize and to understand and to help people to see, then I'm like, yeah, I would love to help you. And I think even like telling people's cultural stories. How could you tell someone's cultural story without bringing in other people who culturally understand it?
Exactly.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That's that authenticity.
Yeah. Not just an outsider looking into a case, or anything.
Right. And I think that we, as creators, have a responsibility to that. Right? Like, we have a responsibility for ourselves and others to hold them accountable. Like doesn't make sense when you think about it. Like, I'm not a Japanese woman, so if I'm going to write a series about a Japanese woman, it would just make no sense to do so without a Japanese woman, at least at the bare minimum, being a part of the creative process, reading reading over it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's just bare minimum to me. So
it's that collaboration. It goes back to that connection and collaboration that whether you're an artist or not, I think we're all called to.
Yep.
Like, we can only be better by hearing each other's stories and by, saying, okay, well, what together can we make? And I'm not calling everyone to say, hey, all writers write with others. But yeah, like you were saying, Anjelika, I'd say at the very least, if you're telling someone else's story,
right.
invite them in and go, how do you feel about that?
A consultant or something. I mean, if you're going to have an autistic character, you have to speak to somebody at Autism Speaks, possibly. You know what I'm saying? Or a writer with autism. Somebody that authentic reflection.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that that's a beautiful opportunity. I encourage people to write other stories, but let that create an opportunity for you to welcome someone else into that process with you that, like you said, knows the authentic side of things. Otherwise, it's going to be lacking.
Yeah. And that, like Anjelika said, that responsibility, it does no justice to the viewers.
Right.
It sets the viewers back. It sets the audience back. And I would like to think that television and film from the 1940s kind of made things, like it influenced the boomers, and it influenced the way things are now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that responsibility as young creators as well is, who are we influencing 70 years from now?
Yeah. Because you are what you absorb. If these are the TV shows and the the songs, everything that people are absorbing, they're absorbing the ideals. They're absorbing the essences of the stories in front of them.
Yes.
So let them be stories that promote everything good that we're all working towards: social justice, mental health destigmatization, cultural, like a melting pot of just showing the world the way that it is. Definitely. And I mean in the hopeful way we're wanting to step into it,
And that's why I am so keen on young Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because the young writers, the young directors, the young actors, young producers, these folks are going to be this business.
Yeah.
They're going to be the Meryl Streeps, the Angela Bassett's, the Aaron Sorkins, and all different kinds of things. But we need to make sure that we're unified, because a lot of young Hollywood likes to fight over little petty bullshit.
Right.
And if we can unify and say, hey, this is more important. The bigger picture is more important.
Right.
What Sally did to Karen don't matter.
Right.
We come together and make this big ass change, because we are influencing the next iteration of politicians and judges, lawyers and teachers, and all of that. And that's why I'll say it to my death day, is young Hollywood is so, so, so important.
Yeah.
You are the educators of this business for the future.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're right. And I love that mentality is not only huge and inclusive, but it's it's bigger than self. You know, I just think it's,
Yeah.
I love that, you know, it starts with self, but it's not about self, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's just like, yes, it's our own self-healing and our own awareness and everything that you can do within your own control, but realizing at the end of the day, especially if we're talking about young Hollywood or like, you know, young actors or something like that, you know, that are on that side of the camera. Even when I was younger, I was like, I can't wait to be the lead in this and the lead in that. And even in, you know, and it was just like, about the age of 18 and 19 is when I started to go, I love what I do, but it's not sustainable and it's not going to bring me the joy that I want to just be in this career for me. This career is about the stories I'm telling that I am given the privilege to tell and the honor to step into, you know, that transformation, and those roles are going to change me. And those people I work with are going to change and shape me. You know, so I love that inclusivity of like, hey, this is so much bigger than any one of us. It's all of us together. And I love the togetherness of it all.
Right. And I think that as long as we keep seeking that, because if we learn from the people ahead of us mistakes, and see, you know, what a lot of the people in this industry have done have done and what they have not done, right? Like what they did not say, what they did not do. And if we commit to saying we are going to be an industry of love, we are going to be an industry of diversity, of unity, where we don't tear each other apart, but we celebrate each other, we lift each other up, and we create opportunities for people who don't look like ourselves.
Yeah.
And we celebrate those people. We're not gonna, you know, tear down each other because of quote unquote missed opportunities, right? Things like that. I think when we, as young Hollywood, when we all commit to that, we will really see more change in the world, because like Blake said, it's just the truth. Like we really are, you know, the next generation of the people who kind of run media and run the images that every little Black girl in my old hometown are going to see. Right? We are now going to be the people who are in charge of that. So we have to commit to that unity that you're talking about. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this conversation with both of you who are so committed to that. And, you know, I know all of us have so many friends who are also committed to that. So it's just continuing to do that work.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is exciting. It's so exciting to come together and talk and to remind each other of that deeper purpose, you know, because I think when we're checking ourselves day to day and reminding ourselves that we're a part of something big and important and powerful, it helps with that day-to-day purpose of, you know, weeks might go by where you know, you don't talk to someone about this kind of stuff, but you're still living each day knowing you're preparing yourself for the participation in something bigger than you, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's an important reminder for all of us and for everyone listening. It's just like, trust that the work you're doing on yourself day to day, to grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, like it's all helping you to become, like we create ourselves each day, and we can, you know, step into the purpose that's there for us. And it's powerful for each and every one of us.
Right.
They all look different. That's what's fun, is like, it's not measured by what the eye can see. It's something internal. And it starts with telling yourself those affirmations Anjelika was talking about. And what Blake was saying with the, you know, I even like the faith without works is dead, because it's true. You might have hope for something good and hope for change, but acknowledge your participation and accountability in it.
Yes.
You know, because we all participate, and you might think that your words don't matter, but they do, you know.
Yes.
So many good things. There were a couple other things I wanted to touch on. I don't know if you guys have any more time. We can start wrapping up.
Go right ahead. I mean,
okay.
I'm good for the next 10 minutes.
Okay,
so
perfect.
We got time.
Okay, so Blake, on a phone call a couple months ago, Blake, I remember you and I talking about, and this was actually brought up to me recently because the presidential debate, which was, I think we all know, a shit show, was it was brought up in one of the topics that there felt like there was something talked about for a second. But we talked about how people in our country have, or our country in general, and feeds into systemic racism, but how we have used criminalization to overlook mental health for centuries, so it seems. And how there was something I think Biden touched on where he was like, maybe we could have a therapist to attend, a call where a police is, a first responder or whatever. I'm butchering the specifics, but my point was that was the first time I heard anyone say anything about bringing on a trained mental health professional.
Right.
And that was like, oh, okay, I'm just glad I'm hearing this because the rest of it felt like squawk. But
it was.
But that was like,
for a second.
yeah, I think we know the gross takeaways from that debate, but that was one good thing I heard. And I hope that we see that implied moving forward, because the good thing about this year and so many things that have happened is that people again cannot look away from the past errors that we have made, and how within white privilege, how there were areas where people were just doing things and getting away with them that are completely insensitive and inappropriate. And it's like that we'll touch on that in a second, but I'm talking about the criminalization, especially focused on minorities, without the look into people's mental health. And Blake, you brought that up to me. I was just curious if you wanted to branch off of that. Any thoughts today moving forward?
Yeah, so April 18th, I don't know if you know the case of Stephen Taylor from my hometown of San Leandro, California. He was a man who was in Walmart. He had a baseball bat. He had a mental health disorder. And one of the employees called the cops, and the cops tased and shot him. And he was killed, and there was a lot of different people, bystanders, like pleading to the cops to not kill him or not shoot him and all these different things, because he was obviously he had a mental health disorder.
Right.
So if we had those responders for mental health disorders, Stephen Taylor would still be alive today. And Stephen Taylor is one case of many. There's several men, black, white, Asian, women as well, who get the police called on them and have to deal with, sometimes being murdered or arrested and not even being arrested and put in jail, not even knowing that they have a mental health disorder, the police not knowing. And
sometimes the person, the victim, might not know either.
The victim may not know. And so I think that's a really big topic to, that is something that needs to happen in this world. My brother, who suffers from bipolar 2, he also, my mother used to call the police on him, but also ensure that, this is something is going on with him. Don't shoot my son.
Right.
He's not going to be in my house disrespecting me, but don't shoot my son. She didn't know what it was at that time. Is sometimes, bad kids is, in quotes, bad kids is what some kids with bipolar disorder are known as or thought
so
as.
Often people who are simply misunderstood are called bad. Are just labeled as bad. And we look at so many people who have been victims, and it's because they were not understood. They were an unconventional call that police showed up to, and they were like, I don't know what to do. So they just reacted with fear,
Exactly. And there's no training.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just this immediate defensiveness, but what's ever accomplished there, It just is more pain, and some terrible cases, death. And it's just, so that's something that hopefully we're seeing. Like I said, just hearing a blip of that in the, it was the first time I had heard any like big, big person on a big scale say, well, maybe we could do this. I was like, yeah, no shit. Like,
right.
We should have been doing this all along.
Forever. As soon as y'all, however long ago, motherfuckers found out what mental health was.
Yeah.
They should have been sending folks out for that a long time ago.
There should be mental health responders, you know? It's just like.
Okay. Right. And so when we talk about, well, I guess I won't say like everyone, but when I can say as an activist, like when I start saying things like, you know, defund the police and things like that, and they're like, okay, but what does that look like? And I'm like, well, think about it. If someone's having a mental like disorder or mental illness breakdown, right, or going through an episode, simply just going through an episode, and cops show up, like those should not be the same people you call for the same as a traffic violation, for the same as someone holding up a gun in a grocery store, for the same as domestic violence, for the same as a girl who's acting out in school. Like all of those should be separate jobs. That people are not trained
specialists.
There's no possible way that in 9 months of training or a year or an under period, in 1 year or less, you can be fully trained to handle all of those situations.
Come on.
Unlike nurses are going to school for years. If lawyers have to go to school for years to just practice the law, you should absolutely be trained for years at bare minimum to enforce the law.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we mean when we say that. And it's also advocating, I think defund the police is also advocating for situations exactly like what Blake is talking about. Like if we had someone who was not just a police officer who just thinks, well, I don't know how to get this person to calm down, so I'll just shoot him.
Yeah.
Like that's not the answer. But if you could see through and, you know, if you had more compassion, but not only just compassion, training, right, to know and be able to differentiate and discern, okay, this person isn't just trying to harm people here. This person is going through something. This person has something deeper. You know what I mean? And that's why we need to defund the police.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Exactly. I would come to both of y'all's TED Talks. So, which will happen. I can't wait. So, Anjelika, something I had seen, I think Sam shared this that was posted on your Instagram several months ago. And that I hope, you know, with everything that has happened this year, that something like this would never happen again. But you had a stunt double who was put in blackface.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that's
correct. Yeah.
Wild. And that was recent. That was within the past few years, right?
Yeah. That was just 2017.
And their excuse was that what they said they couldn't find a black stunt double.
Find a stunt double. Yeah,
that's bullshit.
Which is completely a lie. It's all bullshit. There's so many resources now.
Good. Well, so what did you learn as a Black woman in this industry? Do you feel like now moving forward, you feel like you have found your voice to be able, not even found, it's always been there. You know what I mean? Like that you've owned your voice to be able to say, oh, no. You know, you can't.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people in our industry are so scared of losing jobs that they're afraid to make any comments about anything happening because they don't want to look like they're being extra. But it's like, to all women, but especially to Black women, and like, what do you feel like you learned from that, and that you can help encourage others to know what they're, you know what I mean? I can't find the words, but
yeah. Well, I think for me, like you just said, people have been like, wow, it's so brave. You weren't afraid to, you know, lose the current job you had or whatever. And, I just always feel like the truth will set you free. Like as long as I'm truthful and honest, it doesn't really matter what doors shut in front of me, because God's always going to open a bigger and a better door when I'm doing the right thing.
Yes.
So, you know, when I continue to do the right thing, like I do the right thing every day because I have to sleep at night. Like for some people, they can go to sleep and do the wrong thing. I can't do that.
Right.
So I have to choose, like I said, kindness. I have to choose empathy. I have to do that for my own sanity because I have to sleep. Yeah. And when it came to that, for me, I think sharing my story was about being truthful to my story.
Yeah.
You know, I'm truthful to the experiences that I have been experiencing. And one reason I really chose to share it was because I had felt that a lot of white castmates that I've been working with, or white friends in general, I felt like they were feeling like, and I can't really speak for them, but I felt like they were feeling like their Black friends were not prone to racism. And I was like, you need to know that this has even happened to me on a set.
Yeah.
On a set where like you all think that we're immune because we're actors and you think people kiss your ass all the time. But no, this actually happened to me. This is not something that I'm just making up. I'm not just being an activist talking about Black Lives Matter and racist incidents that have happened to me for shits and giggles. I'm speaking like I've experienced real stuff, and now this is your world. Like being on sets and in the entertainment, that's your world. So that means this is more personal. And unfortunately, people listen to you more when they see that you've had a personal, you know, experience with things.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that I have the photo and was able to keep the photo.
Yeah.
But and I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why I never shared it. I never shared it because I honestly was embarrassed. I was, there's that thing that people do where it's kind of like we're survivors of violence, and incidents happen where bad things happen to you, and then you make excuses of how you allowed that bad thing to happen to you.
Yeah.
We turn it around on ourselves and make ourselves believe it was our fault that happened to us.
Right.
Rather than saying, no, this happened to me from someone else. I didn't do this. And actually after that incident was the first time I got a therapist. That incident was what led me to getting a therapist for the first time, because I felt so ashamed. Like I knew exactly what happened, but I felt powerless. Although I did speak up for myself, and then I felt shut down, and it just put me in a place where I was just so confused. Like, is this the industry I want to be in? Is this what every Black actress has to go through? Is this what everyone has to deal with to make it, to pursue, to like live the dream? And is that worth it for me?
Right.
And the answer to all of those is no.
Yeah.
But I know now, right? I know that now, but at the time I didn't know that. And I did have to seek therapy, and a lot of conversations with myself, with my mom, with God, also my own self-worth, my own self-value. Because now, like, I don't give a damn how much money you're paying me. Like, that's not ever going to happen ever again.
Right.
So, and you know what I mean? Like, now it doesn't matter. And it's not even like I was making a ton of money back then. I wasn't, but I have to have grace, like you said, grace with myself, because people have, you know, commented like, but you still let it happen. You should have walked off set. You should have whatever. And it's like, well, I have grace with myself now, because I remember I was working at Starbucks for $9 an hour while doing that job, right? And trying to find people to cover my shifts. So even though I only made a few $100s, that few $100s was more in one day than I made in 2 weeks at Starbucks. So I had to have grace with where I was at that time in my life.
Exactly.
And grace that I did try to speak up for myself in the best way I knew how at that time.
Yes.
You know? And maybe now I do know that SAG has a helpline. Now I do know that there's Stunt Pop, which is a completely, it's a stunt performer database where it's stunt performers of color, where there is no excuse anymore. But now I know, and you know, now that we know better, we do better. And now I can advocate for other actors, and I can advocate for other stunt performers, so this never happens again. And I think that sometimes God puts us in these situations and uses us so that way we can share our experiences, so they don't ever happen to other people again, at least not on our watch, not that like it will ever be to my knowledge, right? Because there's no possible way I would ever allow that to happen now,
right?
And I think with that being said, it did take a toll on my mental health, but I'm so grateful, you know, in the timing in which I chose to share it, because honestly, I don't think if I would have shared that at 2017, anyone would have even really cared. Like, I would have had the 50 followers I had at the time being like, wow, that's terrible. that sucks. But it's a little different when you have 80,000 followers now.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like I said, it's what you do with your platform. We have a responsibility. And I just felt a full responsibility to be transparent and also to wake people up and be like, just because I am your awesome Black friend in your favorite Netflix movie does not mean I'm prone to not experiencing racism. Like when I walk out of my apartment, I'm just a regular Black woman living my life. Police officers don't know, random strangers don't know, white supremacists don't know who the F I am. I only know who I am, right? I'm subject to every pain, like what Blake was saying. Everyone is, you know, experiencing pain, no matter who you are. It doesn't matter how rich you are. It doesn't matter what placement you're at in, you know, the economic ladder. It doesn't matter. Like everyone experiences that. So I'm just grateful that not only I shared it, but that people saw it for what it was and were taking accountability. And yeah, it shocked a lot of people I know. And good.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That was that faith and work. And
yeah.
that was that faith and work. And I want to just say, because we've had conversations about this, it's so commendable that you did that.
Yes.
You know, so many people are so afraid to speak up and stand up. And this has probably been, it has been happening since the film business was created, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so the
and no one
fact
said
that your voice has now stopped it and made it so, it was already irresponsible, but made it known and said that it was irresponsible.
Right.
Yeah.
Changed the game. And on top of that, after you did that, every animated series with a character that was Black or a person of color had to now be changed.
Yep.
To a person of character. I mean, a person of color playing those characters.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, you were the start, I believe, of more and more happening with this conversation. So
yeah. It was amazing. I didn't even know who you were before then, Anjelika. Well, actually, I think I did see. Were you in Tall Girl?
I was.
Oh my gosh, I saw that like forever ago. When you said Netflix movie, I went, wait, was she in Tall Girl? So yes, I have seen you. That was forever ago. Well, that was amazing too. You were so fun. I remember you like dancing in the hallway. Okay, so I remember literally being like her essence. Yes. But aside from that, just yes, when I saw Sam share that, and that's when and then I saw, I just love how like you started popping up everywhere, and I was like, this girl's amazing. She is so courageous. The word courageous just kept coming to my mind because I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown, and she talks about how vulnerability is strength, you know, and how courageous doesn't mean fearless. Courageous means I took my fear and I faced it and I did something about it. And I got past it in order to, you know, and I think that was, I cannot imagine the fear in posting something like that. And to share it, you know, and like you said, it had already traumatized you, the experience, and you had been working on, you know, but to be able to say, I love my platform and who I am so much that I'm going to remain authentic and I'm going to remain true to myself. And I think that's the best thing we can do for this world is just remain true to who we are. And both of you are such wonderful examples of that. And it's just, it's inspiring to see. Now you're working on an awesome show. You're about to go film season 2 of Stargirl.
Woo!
Yeah, hell yeah. And Blake is always in the works with so many things, and like you're connected to so many people, and y'all inspire me. And I know, Anjelika, we're just now meeting online, but I'm so grateful y'all took this time to share your insight, your experiences, your wisdom, and truths with our audience, because this was just a really cool, powerful, encouraging episode.
it was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for having us both. Yeah, Blake, thanks so much for the introduction.
Yes. Real quick, share your social media handles with us so the audience can find you, and we'll put them in the links below as well.
I'm at Blake.tv on Instagram.
Perfect.
And mine is at Anjelika W, spelled ANJELIKAW, and that is across all social media platforms.
Come on.
Perfect. You guys go find them online now. Follow them. They are so inspirational, filling your days with light. I'm so grateful. So grateful again, you guys. Thank you.
Yes,
oh, thank
baby.
you.
It's temporary, baby. This is temporary.
Yes, Granny B.
Yes, baby. We are in this thing.